The Ducati Multistrada Pikes Peak is the most powerful bike in the sports tour crossover segment, but does that raw power make it too much for the road? Okay, so first up for me is the engine, because I freaking love the engine in this thing. So it's an 1158cc V4 Grandturismo engine. Valve checks every 60,000 Ks. It's 170 horsepower at 10,750 RPM. And there's 124 Newton meters of torque at 9,000 RPM. As I said, I loved it. It was raw, it was exciting, it was energetic. The engine gets a massive thumbs up from me.
Yeah, it just had like a very mechanical feel to it. Like when you wrap on that power, the engine feels big. Like you can feel that power sort of coming through.
It's like a big release, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's interesting.
You can feel it, but you can also hear it.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, you can hear, I mean, the exhaust sounds great, but you can hear the engine working.
So I loved the Gran Turismo, but for different reasons. Undeniably feels like a Ducati. They always nail a V, and it's that kind of unleashed power at your fingertips, instantaneous, sounds great, feels great. But interestingly, I actually found the Gran Turismo to be more controllable. Like, it's not unusable. You get all the benefits of Ducati at its finest, with none of the downside where it's like a hair trigger throttle and it's nearly unrideable. So yeah, big thumbs up from me as well.
Having said that, depending on what ride mode you've got it in, I left it in touring mostly, and touring was fine. I did put it in race once. I went, holy shit, this thing's scary. It's got the rear cylinder deactivation, so that keeps the bike nice and cool when you're sitting in traffic. So I didn't really notice any issues with heat on the bike.
Yeah, I was surprised actually for a Ducati. It got a little bit warm, but it wasn't too bad.
This is the person who single-handedly keeps heated grips in business, complaining about being hot. I just don't get it.
I know, on a warm spring day, it was a little warm, but it was still nothing too uncomfortable. Like, the air coming through the fairing, it kept you reasonably cool when you were moving. It's only when you're at a standstill.
After the engine, for me, the suspension is where this bike really shines.
Yep,
it's got some really fancy electronic compression and rebound damping adjustment. I don't know how that happens, but it's some weird thing going on with the Ohlins Smart EC.
That's how it should be. I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah.
It just works.
Yeah.
And building on that, the presets for the suspension make so much sense. Rider with equipment, rider and pillion with equipment.
Yep.
Press the button, bzzz, it lifts up. I don't need to know what it's done. It just works.
Yeah. So when I was ripping around the Central West on this bike, and the guys at Ducati told us to do this. So I didn't have a pillion, but I did have a bag on the back. But they said set it up for rider with pillion and bag.
Yeah.
To tighten it right up, and my God, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really good. So basically, all of that with the suspension, in simple and real world terms, it means it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't say it better.
So it's got 17-inch wheels, front and back, which just adds to that great handling.
Superb handling, yeah.
And it's one of the key differences between the Pikes Peak version and the other bikes in the Multistrada family. And then the other thing that really separates it from the others is that stunning single-sided swing arm.
I love a single-sided swing arm. I think it looks awesome.
Yeah, this is Ducati at its finest. So you get all the chance to experience the 17-inch wheel because you can see the whole thing on the single-sided swing arm. Looks awesome.
Now, the adjustable seat height I thought was really good. When we were at Ducati, because we jumped on it and it was a little bit tall, so they actually dropped it down to its sort of lowest setting. And we dropped it down to their 840, and I could easily flat-foot it, and I had no dramas with this bike being too tall. And it is a tall bike. It is a big bike.
I would say, yeah, it's pretty tall. Like, weirdly enough, I'm taller than Ross, but my legs are shorter than Ross's. I couldn't quite flat-foot it. Look, it was still comfortable enough, but I would have it at that lowest setting.
So electronics, like any range-topping bike from a respectable brand, there is a lot of electronics.
Yeah.
We've already touched on the suspension. Let's talk about the TFT. It's big. It looks good. It's got plenty of useful information.
Absolutely.
Not a lot of crap on there that you don't need. Lots of stuff on the switch block, but it's not too daunting. You get used to it pretty quickly. Did either of you connect your phone?
We
I
both
did.
did. Surprisingly,
No way.
I got mine connected. So you connect via the Ducati Connect app.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty straightforward. Once you just go in through the menu, set on Bluetooth, it was pretty straightforward to do.
Straightforward for, I don't know, I find that all the bike apps are difficult.
Yeah.
But in terms of the bike apps, this was definitely on the easier side,
Yeah.
although you do need 2 apps
You
to do
do
it.
need 2 apps. The second one is you need an app for maps. So that's not via the Ducati Connect app. That's via a separate one. Quick shifter, really good.
Great.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
good. I
Yep.
found it really raw, which made it a lot of fun.
Yep.
Particularly in those lower gears,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
a bit more clunky. Not clunky seems a little bit
It's
too
not.
harsh.
Yeah, clunky's not the word.
Well,
Just raw.
it's
but
Characterful.
It's
it's
You
got a
character like a
character.
Ducatista.
Rider modes. There was urban, race, sport, and touring. For me, touring was where it was at.
I pretty much stuck to urban and touring. I kind of flicked between those two.
I found sport to be the most fun. And you know what's funny is I had it in touring and I'm like, yeah, this bike's all right.
Yeah.
And then I put it in sport. I'm like, wow, this is right for me. And as you said, you put it in race and it's like all hell's let loose. I did give it a fang in race and it's very direct. In race mode, it's really putting you in the driver's seat and saying, all right, well, I'll turn my systems off and let's see what you're made of, champion. So yeah, race mode, save it for the track. Or, if you want to lose your license, go for it.
Did
Yeah.
you find out what you were made of, champion?
I did find out what I was made of. Mostly jelly, as it turns out. Yeah. Best hill hold start I've ever used on any bike.
Wow.
Yep,
Really?
straight up. Because it's very obvious to turn on, it's very obvious to turn off. If you don't want to use it, it will never turn itself on. You pull the front brake lever quite firmly, it will very obviously engage. If you decide you don't want to use it, double pull the front brake, it will turn itself off. That's it.
Someone commented the other day about, you guys, your reviews are good, but you never mention the headlights.
Yeah.
So when I was out on this one on the weekend, I checked the headlights and I stuck the high beam on, and they were good. They were nice and bright, and the cornering lights worked really well.
Yep.
So I can't remember your name, but if you are watching this one, headlights on the Pikes Peak, thumbs up.
Well, this segues quite well, actually. We've talked about the headlights. Let's talk about the brake lights.
Let's talk about the brake light, Lucas.
When you do a heavy stop, the brake light does that quintessentially German thing where it flashes, it pulses to say, I'm doing an emergency stop.
Yeah.
The brakes, so good. So good. Yeah.
So there's twin 330mm semi-floating discs with Brembo stylemas on the front. The rear brake, 265mm disc with a Brembo 2-piston caliper.
one piston more than you need.
Bosch Brembo cornering ABS, and it's all impressive.
Yep.
The other safety feature I really love was the blind spot monitoring.
When I picked up the bike, I saw that it had that. And honestly, in my head, I was like, I don't know if you really need that as a motorcyclist, because you're always so hyper aware of everyone that's around you. You know who's behind you, you know who's next to you. But I suppose it is just that added safety level again that just, it's a good thing to have. If you don't need it, that's great.
The other thing that it's got that's a really good safety feature and that helps you ride is wheelie control. Thank God it's got that. So this one has adaptive cruise control, and it's
Yep.
wonderful, and it works between 30 and 160 kilometres an hour. Now, I didn't test that out. I tested it between
because you never did
30
30?
and 100. But I only tested it between 30 and 110, which is the legal maximum here in Australia. That's where I tested it, and it works perfectly. I assume if someone in Germany could let us know if it works at 160, that would be great. So another thing I liked was the screen, how it was really easy to pull that screen up and adjust it. Now, I mostly left it in that upper position.
Same.
And it worked really well in terms of airflow over the top. Did a really good job, that screen.
One really cool feature about this bike that I really loved was the little phone holder basically in front of you on the tank.
Yeah.
You could just slot your phone in there. There's a USB charger that you can plug into, which you absolutely need if you are using the app, because you have to leave the app open and it will drain your battery. So it's just a cool extra that you have there. Chuck your phone in there. I also chucked my keys in there as well. It was just like a handy little spot
Yeah.
to chuck little things in.
So one of the things I really loved about this bike was the styling. It's typical Ducati. It's typical premium Ducati.
Yeah.
There's the Acura exhaust. There's that two-tone black and red on the rear seat. I loved the look and styling of this bike.
Yeah.
Just typical premium Ducati. Loved it.
So with the styling, it looks big and you'd expect it to be heavy, but the wet weight without fuel, which is weird, so it's semi-wet, is 227 kilos. That's pretty light for a really serious sports tourer. Probably one of the best sports tourers available in the market.
Yeah, when you're sitting on it, it's a big front end to that bike. So that also means great weather protection.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's not heavy.
And I'm just going to put my 2 cents in here. I don't know if I say it wasn't heavy. Moving, absolutely fine. I found that weight distribution pretty good. But when I'm moving the bike in a garage, say, I found it pretty heavy. And I think it's just because it is a bigger bike as well.
And the price of the 2024 Multistrada Pikes Peak is around 47 grand, so it's up there.
Ooh, it certainly is.
Wow. The TFT, even though I loved it, some of the text was too small. There's just really fine text. I think everyone should be copying BMW's TFT. And there was something weird going on there.
Nothing. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
I think everyone should be copying BMW's TFT because the text size on that is great.
Yeah.
I wear reading glasses. And that's probably where they were going with their little smoky things before.
Yeah.
But I don't wear them when I'm riding.
Is
And
there storage options for your walking stick as well on this bike? But 48 grand?
Give me bigger text.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not like I'm going to be buying it.
Yeah, that's
your,
true, actually.
Your clientele Ducati is 50 plus. Ducati, I'm sorry, this is a great bike and great for a youthful personality like Tegan. But yeah, you need maybe have a button, and on the button it has a little walking stick, and you press it, and all the text comes up like that.
Okay, connecting the phone. Now, as I said, easy to do. You have to download the Ducati Connect app, then you have to download another app for your maps.
Yep.
But you need to pay a subscription for the maps. Seriously, have you never heard of Apple CarPlay or Android CarPlay?
Sorry, just remind me, how much is this bike?
Correct.
48 grand?
And I still had to buy a $30 subscription to an app for maps. The foot pegs were a little sporty for me. They were a little bit more tucked back. I would prefer a bit more of a relaxed riding position. So I'm really looking forward to riding the Multistrada V4 RS, which we're going to get very soon.
Cool.
The amount of times that I hit the menu button when I was trying to use the indicators was probably like a 50-50.
Yeah, I did find the left control harder to use than other bikes. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Once you get used to it, you get used to it. Fair enough. This bike is quite big, bulky, cumbersome, hard to adapt to, but this is not something that you buy on a whim and sell 3 weeks later. So you're going to get used to it. You're going to ride it all the time. But that was the one thing, is that it takes a long time to adjust and get comfortable on. When you get on, you're like, oh shit, this is a lot.
Now, one little thing that I did notice, and I am actually curious again if either of you did this, that little pocket for the phone, super handy. But multiple times I would lean forward to get off the bike and I would push it in and it would open.
Oh, I brought this up with Ross and he looked at me like I was insane. But when I was riding it, I was just riding it, it would pop open.
As in, because
It
you
would just
leaned
come.
on it?
No, I swear I'm riding it upright and it would just pop open.
His tummy
It's
was
the beer
popping
gun.
open. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was just opening.
So obviously the bike is keyless.
Oh yeah.
Except for you need the key to fill up,
The fuel tank.
to open.
Yeah. What?
But the other thing is, when I picked the bike up off Ross, I rode off. 10 minutes later, I get a call from Ross saying, "Do you want the key?" There was no warning at all. I'm glad you realised that it was still in your pocket, because otherwise, yeah, I would have been stranded.
I was just about to cook dinner.
So I had to go back and get the key. But yeah, it was just
She didn't stay for dinner.
I wasn't invited.
So I liked this bike. I had a lot of fun on it. I think the rider modes are justified. I think it's comfortable. It's relaxed. It's ergonomically pleasing. I think it's a great tourer. The radar cruise and the blind spot monitoring mean that you're nice and calm when you ride it. I did find, I don't know, maybe it's lacking a little. There's a little something that it's lacking. There's a little bit of soul that I was expecting that just didn't really come through to me. Styling's great, handling's great, brakes are great, power's great. But for me personally, and I can't quite put my finger on it, something's lacking. So this bike, great, and it deserves a fair score, which is 7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm just going to go straight off the back of that, because I kind of agree. I wouldn't say I was grinning when I was riding it. Like, it was easy. It was easy to ride. And like you said, having those indicator warning lights and just all of the tech on it definitely makes it an easier bike to ride. But as a commuter bike, It's not really great for commuting, not great for filtering. There was something missing from it. I don't know what it was, and it's not a good review to be like, I don't know why, but I didn't really love it. But it is what it is. And so I would say it's a great bike. The quality is there. And I'm going to copy Lucas and give it a 7.5.
So I think you've sort of nailed it in terms of what you're saying. There's something missing. And I think what's missing is the fact that you guys didn't ride it in its intended purpose.
Yeah.
I had an absolute blast ripping around the central west of New South Wales. And I clocked up about 1,000 Ks over 2 days. I went with some mates down through the Southern Highlands, up to Schmoken. And then from there, I was actually heading to Bathurst. So I decided to go the long way. So up through Crookwell, Toowoomba and Trunky Creek. This bike was great on the freeway, and it was an absolute hoot on those country roads. It was great in the twisties. Is it a good bike to commute on? No, but that's not its intended purpose.
Yeah.
So the ride that I did out in the Central West, ripping around in that situation, I gave it an 8.5. It was an absolute hooligan machine. Handling was superb. I loved it. So there are plenty of great sports tourers on the market, and there are a few of them in this playlist over here.